morning. My name is Lynn, and I'm an alcoholic. Wow, this is so wonderful. So wonderful to be here with all of you, all the big book thumpers. And proud of it. Actually, my driver license says BBTHMPR. I am really emotional just to be with all of you, and we have a common problem and a common solution, and this is sort of a hand-picked audience because you're all interested in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and in your recovery, and that tells me most likely that you're happy, joyous, and free most of the time, and I can certainly feel this right now. I want to thank Tabby. Where is Tabby? Oh, she's driving some. Tabby has been driving us to and fro the airport Friday, and today I believe she's making 4 trips. So thank you so much for your service to Alcoholics Anonymous. And she's got this big, red, gnarly truck. Like huge. It was just so much fun. And so I'm kind of preaching to the choir this morning. If you are new, I beg you to study the text, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, just so you know what's in it and what's not, because you will hear all sorts of things in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's important for me to know what's in it, because if it says you do this and you die, and you don't do that and you perish, I better know. I better know what's in it. I remember when I was living in Switzerland, there were these people talking at a party, and this young woman was sober 2 or 3 years, and she had really a hard time in her life. She was talking about having this resentment and suicidal thought. And there is Greg over there who's been in and out for years, and he said, do you know what I do? I have a rubber band here, and when I start having those thoughts, I pinch myself. Oh my gosh, I hope she's reading the big book, or she'll think that in Alcoholics Anonymous we just pinch ourselves with rubber band. This is not our solution. This is not what we do. I have a really, really cool sobriety date, and it's June 22nd, 1982. And I hope you feel the same way about your date. This is the most important piece of information to know about me. And I've had my nose in the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous since the very beginning. And so you'd think I'd probably just close to levitating. Well, I do pretty well, but once in a while I go crazy. I want something, or you shouldn't have said that. And there I go with this undisciplined mind. And so I need to be current and continue this preventive program, so when those days when I go crazy occur, I can still be comfortable enough not to have to drink. I met my husband about 4 years ago, and he's a normal person who's now joined Al-Anon. And we were, before moving back to the States, we spent a week at a friend who's the realtor because we were going to buy a house. And this friend was in Al-Anon. And Werner had a conversation with him that he repeated to me the next day. And he went to Kevin and said, "Would you please help me understand Lynn's reactions?" And Kevin said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, this afternoon I was telling her what I thought she should do." Kevin said, "Did you use the word should?" "Yes, I did." "Don't you use the word should with alcoholics. It's not going to go over very well." And Werner said, "But I was right." He said, "It's irrelevant." I was just going to prevent her from making a mistake. Let her make the mistake. I just wanted to help her. Did she ask you for help? No, don't offer the help until they ask. And then Kevin said, do you know about HALT? He said, no, they're not supposed to get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And if they get hungry, you better take it seriously, otherwise they get really cranky. So a couple of days later in the morning, we're going on a 2-hour drive, and all of a sudden in the car he said, I forgot the nuts. I said, nuts, what for? If you get hungry, I have to feed you. Some kind of a pet monkey, you know? It happens. And so I have to be careful. You know, they say that this is a suggested program of recovery, not a program of suggestions. It's a suggested program. And we hear sometimes, yes, but these are only suggestions. We don't have to do them. And, well, it also says, if you want what we have, and what is it that we have is a new peace, is serenity. If you want that, then these becomes requirements. And I take that very, very seriously. In my old life, there was no God in my old life. I felt separate from, afraid, and secure. I was afraid of my parents. I was afraid of the dark. I knew the little girls didn't like me. I knew I would fail the exam. And I had my first drink when I was 13, and all those fears and insecurities went away. I had found the answer to my living problem. Sobriety was my problem. It was not drinking. And then I drank for 14 years the same way. I was a blackout drinker. I created a lot of problems with my drinking, and it never made a dent. I kept drinking more and more and more until the last weekend when it stopped working. And I moved from Canada to the United States. I was 24 years old. I had a license to practice law, second youngest in law school. I moved to the United States. I learned the language. I lived with a very rich man in a big house on top of the hill with a Porsche and a cleaning lady, and that didn't work. And I just drank more and more, and eventually he kicked me out, and I found myself at the age of 27 sleeping in a sleeping bag on the floor. I thought, wow, I'm an illegal immigrant. I have no access to any of the programs. I'm estranged from my family. I cannot work. I'm emotionally unemployable. I have no money. I thought, I know I'm going to be an escort. This was my last good idea. And so I'm squatting on my floor with the phone book under escort. Well, Lynn, you like to sleep with good-looking guys. Well, I'll just have a couple of drinks first. And then but Lynn, you have a license to practice law. Well, I can use my education to have an intelligent conversation with those men before we go to bed. So that's how I justified being an escort with a license to practice law. We heard, just give me a minute. And so I called the Alcoholics Anonymous June 21st, 1982, and they said, you want to stop drinking? And I said, no. I just want to learn how to have 5 or 6. It's after that I get in all this trouble. And they said, you're not ready for us, and they hung up. When you want to stop drinking, you call us back. And with the next couple of hours or so, I heard in my mind, Lynn, you're done with drinking. There is nothing left in this for you. And I called back, and this was my last drink so far. So I had no conception of a higher power, no relationship with a higher power. I just said yes. And then they took me to detox, and I stayed. And then they said, we suggest you go to the 10-day program next door. And I said yes. And then they suggested I went to a recovery house. I said yes. And then they told me to start reading the big book and highlight everything. And I said, yes. And then they said, we think you should have a sponsor. I said, yes. And then she said, you need to start the steps. And I said, yes. And they said, now you go and be a greeter on Saturday night. I said, yes. So it's not, in my opinion, that God chose some of us to be sober, neglecting, not caring about the others. I believe that God reveals himself to all of us. It's up to us to say yes. Someone was telling me this morning, you have such a loving, pleasant, calming presence. I said, yes, just like just like the swan on the lake, gliding so gracefully, apparently without efforts. But if you saw the little feet, the little feet. And so those little feet means that we continue, and continue doing those things. In the first paragraph of the 10th step, the word continue is mentioned 4 times. My opinion, it's the mistakes that some who go out make. Stop calling the sponsor, stop prayer and meditation, stop going to meetings, and eventually the obsession comes back and they drink again. For those who've already read the big book and maybe they don't find a reason to do this again, one time I read the big book just to look for the warning signs, and I found 22 relapse warnings in the big book. They have the little red dots here. And then I read it another time looking for the prayers throughout the big book. And these are the little yellow signs there. And most prayer starts with ask. We ask for a thought. We ask for an intuition. We ask for a decision. We ask for forgiveness. We ask God to show us. And I could be asking a lot more often during the day than I do. I'm still practicing this, but believe me, I still have a selfish mind. My thoughts are still selfish. My first thought is about me. I love hazelnut creamer. You see, coffee to me is like alcohol. I don't like the taste of it. I'm looking for the buzz. And so I put this coffee, that much water, then I put hazelnut creamer. They have hazelnut creamer here. This is a classy joint. And so I went yesterday, and there were only 3 left in the basket. That's what I did. Looked around. The regular ones was full. I figured I'm not the only one who likes hazelnut. Isn't it? Put this in my pocket. Now, what 36 years of practicing this program has done is that earlier on, I would not even have considered you. Yesterday, the thought came, but Lynn, this is selfish. You're taking it away from somebody else. I took it anyway, but I thought of you. So, I've been feeling like a thief all weekend, watching for the hazelnut creamer. And so, our function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. Well, the understanding to me is, after doing the 4, 5, 6, 7, the lineup of speakers this weekend, I took notes, I learned so much, my heart was touched. How did you do that, Marty? And then I was thinking about Marty. He's brilliant, obviously. I wish I had half the memory, the intelligence that he has. And thought, well, he made kind of a joke on all the speakers. I got to come up with one on him. Thought, I bet that brilliant mind of his, when it chews on a bone, And so this morning, I asked him if he slept well. He said, no, I've been studying neurotheology, and I've been thinking about it all night. I said, yes, I was right. And so what do? We watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And I call it spiritual judo. I watch. Selfishness, my thoughts. The big book says we are on discipline at page 88. On discipline about what? It's not diet, it's not exercise, it's the mental discipline. The problem centers in my mind today as much as it did 36 years ago. So we discipline that mind the way that we've just outlined. And so I understand today, through the 4th and 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, how my behavior can affect you. Like my poor husband, it was his birthday on Thursday, and I get my hair cut once every 4 weeks. So 4 weeks ago, I established the date, okay, October 4th, the day before I leave for the conference. And Wednesday, I realized it was his birthday, and I'm going to get my hair cut at 5 o'clock so we can go out to dinner together. And so he was upset. So I'll have to make it up to him next week. But it's, again, my selfishness. How could you not think October 1st is your husband's birthday? My hair was more important that day. So then I have to go and practice being an unselfish, honest, courageous, and forgiving wife to every time I have an opportunity. So I will make my amends next week. And so I have to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And when these crop up, ask God to remove. Ask God to remove. I have to go to God. And this is the work that I do with my sponsees. When they call me, we take the steps over the phone. It's not always necessary to write the 10 steps. Sometimes we can just fix it over the phone. And then once we look at that in the inventory, now you have your hour power. 6 steps would take an hour, so they can have with God the conversation they just had with me. And wait for the answer. Just wait for the answer. Few months ago, I invited someone to my home for 8 days. Someone I'd never spent even 15 minutes with. It's just not a good idea. So after 3 days, I asked her to leave. I called my sponsor first. She said, not in my house. So I asked her to leave. And then, you know what, Lynn, let's see if we can work it out, because that person said, I'm going to have to tell my mom that I messed that one up too. And it appealed to my heart. And so I took the steps over this. I had been impatient, irritable, all this, so I'm making my amends to her. And she said, oh, my sponsor who makes an amend to me. I'm thinking, don't push it. Don't push it. And so we worked it out. We worked it out. And what I learned was, it's God's will if someone is in my home. Maybe they don't get invited again, but to do the best I can to be spiritual, to practice the step, and to take this as an opportunity to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And we did, because I'm still sponsoring her. We still love each other. And you know what? I think I'd like for her to come back. Meanwhile, I had to make amends to my husband for putting up with us for 8 days. It's so humbling. There is just always so much to learn. And so I'm watching, I'm asking, then see if I need to share that with anybody, and then to turn my thoughts. There is that discipline again, to turn my thought like an ocean liner in a marina, away from the resentment, from the selfishness, and on to thinking about somebody else. And I know I want to go back and pick it up again. Aunt Monique, someone brought up the idea that to be sane is to be honest. I'm in my kitchen 2 years ago in February. It's a beautiful sunny day. We have a view over the lake and the mountains. And we just come back from Canada 2-3 months previous to that. And the thought came, Aunt Monique should have invited us. You know what? Every time I go there, I buy expensive gifts. And I don't know why she didn't invite us. Maybe I did something wrong. I bet she's talking about that to everybody. She's a gossip. And within 10 minutes, I had a full-blown resentment. Now, this was a perfectly good day. And that's the bone I decided to chew on with no discipline in my mind. And so I had to write down the inventory about Aunt Monique. Well, why do I want to insist on staying at Aunt Monique? Well, it's because she's very well located, drives us around, and it's for free. Because I don't really like Aunt Monique. The selfishness, the dishonesty, the resentment, and the fear. What's the fear? Well, family members should not have to spend their money on lodging when they visit family. And I don't know where that belief comes from. I really, really don't know. Because if I was the aunt who doesn't want to invite the niece, my belief would be, aunts don't have to invite nieces if they don't want to. My belief system is extremely flexible, depending upon what it is that I want. And so, turn our thought. It's so difficult. And I can do this in the corner. I can do it in my car. It's not like I need to go pick up somebody, take them to a meeting. I can start praying for someone, perhaps, who shared at a meeting the night before. It's the idea of turning my thoughts away. We are living in the world of the Spirit. And we so need that right now. I think it's been expressed in different ways this weekend. We have tumultuous waters, and the captain is on the bridge. So with the 10th and 9th steps, I want to stay on the bridge next to the captain. I did a higher power last week about some fears that I had. And when it quieted down, I heard, "Stay with me. You are safe and protected." And then when I did my higher power with our guest, it took about 35 minutes when I was done sharing with God, so I get to know him better. And what I heard stunned me. It was, "I want you to love all my children." Okay? Get off the stage and sit in the crowd. God, when I hear it's a voice that's neutral, very few words, and it's a bullseye right in the middle of my soul, and I hear it and I heed it. And that is why I stayed for 5 more days with this delightful guest. This daily reprieve, all we have is a daily reprieve, which is also a stay of execution. That's what a daily reprieve is. And so those laurels, I cannot today be sober on the meetings I attended last week or the steps I will be taking tomorrow. Today, I need to maintain my sobriety. And when it talks about a fit spiritual condition, I look at this as going to the gym. I can be going to the gym regularly, and I am in a fit physical condition, but it doesn't prevent me from having a headache or a cold, and I'm still physically fit. The same thing with that spiritual condition. In taking those steps every single day, I am spiritually fit. It does not mean I won't go crazy once in a while, that I won't have a resentment or fears, and that does not mean that I've lost my spiritual fitness. Is that because I am spiritually fit, although I have fears and a resentment that day, I will be able to stay sober through that day. And I heard some very touching challenges that people have had in their sobriety, and they've been able to go through it whether it's the death of a child or a cancer diagnosis, and to be able to go through all this sober, that tells me that person is spiritually fit and is doing that work. It talks about in the morning and at night. Interestingly enough, actually, it starts with when we retire at night first, and I thought, okay, why is this first in the big book? It's because by the time you get the big book, it's probably already past morning, and they want you to start today when we retire at night. And there it has, again, these beautiful promises. We ask God's forgiveness and inquire corrective measure. We ask God to direct our thinking. We ask God for inspiration and intuitive thought or a decision. We ask Him to show us all through the day what our next step is to be. We constantly remind ourselves we're no longer running the show. Throughout the day we pause. It's not to reload. The biggest pause I've had to make, I went to Switzerland in 2012 and I spent 3 years there. And it was a tough assignment because they didn't talk about the big book or about the steps. They used the daily reflection. And so I started showing up for meeting with my big book. They don't know there we don't take our big books unless it's a big book study. They don't know. And so I would put it there. And I would always talk about the steps, and spines would stiffen around me, the old-timers, because the ego has been threatened. Newcomers, yes, but not the old-timer. And they didn't know about Big Book Study. They didn't know about Women's Meeting. And so we started those meetings. And one Big Book Study was in our house. And one evening, Christian looked really desperate, and we talked. And he said, Lynn, I've been doing this for 14 years. I get a couple of months, and then I drink again. And I'm losing my hope. And I said, have you done the steps? He said, yes. I said, oh, no, this is the only answer I have for you. If you've done the steps, I can't help you. You wrote your 4 steps? Oh, yes, I wrote a few things. I got him. You shared it with your sponsor? Oh, I haven't told anybody. How about 6, 7, 8, and 9? He said, then I guess I haven't done them. I said, yes, then there is something for us that we can do. I'll do the steps with you. He said, what? I said, yes, I'll do the steps with you. He said, Lynn, I've been here for 14 years, and it's the first time someone offers to do the steps with me. See, we imitate each other. If nobody is doing it, no, we're not learning how to do this. And so he came. I said, Tuesday night, 2 hours every week, 17 weeks, we're going to do a workshop together. And then by the 3rd week, he's just having a spiritual awakening, and he's on fire, and he's going to meetings, and people are asking him, what happened? I'm doing the step with my step sponsor, Lynn. And so they did not believe that the way I was the program. They would say, you're so luminous, and what is it about you? And we saw you coming in that yellow outfit. I said, it's not me, it's God within me. It's the program, it's the 10th and 11th, it's God's presence. They didn't believe me. They believed Christian when they saw him change. And so then there was Christian, and there was Jean-Claude, and then I get a text from Bruno, can I do the steps with you? And blah, blah, blah. So then I've got 4 guys coming to my house doing the steps with me, and we're living on a cul-de-sac in a very conservative residential area. Oh, no, I know. And at the end of a driveway, there is a gate. So my husband comes out, opens the gate. They come. And every time they leave, they look happier than when they came. You know. And so, but not one woman. See, women without a program, we're just competition. When I saw beautiful Danielle, if it hadn't been for her healthy self-esteem and know that I'm God's child and that I am beautiful and enough just as I am, this would have been competition. So, oh my gosh, she's much prettier than I am, and I could have gone down the drain with this. But I just can appreciate her beauty. And this is a result of taking the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous for a while. So I didn't have a woman. And meanwhile, I'd been doing this women's meeting. And there were 8 of us. And they started turning on me. Stop looking at me, stop talking to me. And so I called my Swiss sponsor, and she said, we don't go to meetings to see who loves us. We go to meetings to greet the newcomer. So that night I went to that meeting anyway. Talk about discovering a fear of rejection I didn't know I still had. And instead of looking in their eyes, I was still so dependent on your approval and validation. I just concentrated on Claudia with 9 months, and Claudia said, I'm so grateful that I get to study this big book. And everybody around the table, some with 14 years, 22 years, and 33 years, who hadn't read the big book, and how grateful they were. And I walked out of that meeting feeling grateful rather than rejected, and it was exactly the same meeting. I went back the following week. They were having a business meeting, and the secretary said, we don't have any unity in this meeting. Lynn, I have a problem with you. I said, did you say my name? If you have a problem with me, you call me. That's why I have a problem with you. And they started to attack me one after the other. Talk about a pause. I was shaky, I was afraid, I was hurt. I didn't understand. And so I paused, the fear crept up, and I definitely felt hurt and threatened, and I asked God to remove. And I needed to share with someone, so I took my cell phone, and I contacted someone here in the States. And she was there, and I said, they're attacking me, it's so painful. I don't want to leave, it's giving away too much power. She said, it's easier to take someone else's inventory than ours. And I stayed with her until they were done. And I chuckled even a couple of times. And then this last one said, she's not even listening to what we're saying. So the secretary said, okay, let's go to number 2. And then I joined in for the rest of the meeting, and I didn't go back. I got a free pass from my sponsor. I don't have to go back there. But in my experience, this was the most important pause, that I did not fight them, that I did not defend, that I stayed anyway. This really, really works. And I told you I was sorry that I didn't have a woman who did the steps with me so she could take someone else to the steps. 2 days before we were to move back to the United States, we were already in our hotel room, and I get an email from one of those women. And it was an amend letter. And she said, Lynn, I'm so sorry for the harm that we caused you. I so regret that I missed being your friend. And I want you to know that when we mention your word in your name in my little country, it's with love and gratitude. I am so sorry. I thought, there she is, my woman. I got her. And so I responded, of course, can you have coffee tomorrow? And we did. And then we did the steps via Skype, and she started a big book study herself. And 3 of the guys who did the steps with me, they did the workshop with groups for 3 years in a row. It took them about a year, and some old-timers signed up. Isn't that cool? I mean, this was a tough assignment. But with the steps, the traditions, and the concepts of Alcoholics Anonymous, all these 36 principles, I can continue doing that footwork so I can be of service. We started the 3rd step with the bondage of self to remove. And by the 7th step, we are of service to the people about us. By the 9th step, the promises of last night, now we are at peace in the world of the Spirit, and we can become instrument and be useful. These people about us, who are these people? The people about. And that's what happened as a result of continuing to studying that big book and listening to others. Words, the emphasis on words changes. And so who are the people about us? I thought, the delivery people, anybody who comes to our door. How can I be of service to the UPS guy, for instance? A treat. And so I have a basket, and in it I have different little bags of nuts and chocolates and power bars. And I come to the door with the basket and an apple and a drink. Would you like something? One of them took it all. The apple, the drink. And then the man who checks our air conditioning once a year showed up recently, and he said, "You offered me food last year." And I thought, wow, he goes to 4 or 5 houses every day for a year, and he remembered ours. This is the people about us you can be of service. And there was another man who said, wow, in most houses that I go to, their attitude is, get off my property. And he had a big smile. You know, you see these big, gentle giants all happy to have a little bag of nuts. We just don't know. We don't know the little touches that we can send out into the world because we are of maximum service. It talks also about being of maximum service to our fellow men. It's only a year ago I figured out, well, my husband certainly is one of those fellas. How can I be of service to my husband in the spirit of having a better understanding, a better effectiveness? And if I do ask God to remove selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, I am to practice to be unselfish, honest, forgiving, and courageous as a wife. We talk about having an ideal, and I fall short. This is my ideal. And you know, alcoholics, as well as maybe some other people, we have this sense of not being enough. And there is a shame, and that's why we puff ourselves up. Why? Because I want more congratulation and more admiration and more popularity than I really deserve. So I exaggerate, I minimize, and I put the facade out there. And underneath, there is this sense of not being enough. And as a wife, I fail that way because, well, I don't do housework. I'm just not going to do it. And sure. I told our cleaning lady, you are so special. Your gift is not only when you come to my house, but it's every single day when I look at it, and it's not my responsibility. And she is certainly a person about me, and this is not to brag, this is just little ideas that I'm sharing with you on how we can share this gift of sobriety. My husband bought me diamond earrings that were bigger than those I already had, little studs. Who needs 2 pairs of diamond earrings? So I gave the smaller ones to her, and she cried. She's in her 50s. She's never owned a diamond in her life. And she talks to me about how how difficult it is sometimes to live in a different country. And so I want to be so respectful and so uplifting to her as a woman who certainly has a huge feeling of not being enough. We can do so much with the little details. And so with my husband, and I'm not very fond of shovels either, and I'm learning about pots and pans. So as a wife, I am limited. And I won't tell you everything because we have gentlemen, but I'm getting older. Everything gets older. My skin is sliding down to the floor as we speak. As we speak. And so I had to look at myself. What are my gifts that I can offer with my limitation? And it requires honesty and humility. I'm not as smart as he is. I'm not a homemaker as someone else might be. I can forget birthdays. But I tell you what, I have a very cheerful nature. I'm easy to get along with, except 2 months ago with that lady who came for 8 days. I went crazy. And I love that man just the way he is. And isn't that the biggest gift? I said, honey, you don't have to change for me. I'll work around it. I love you just the way you are. Just the way you are. And you know, the first year and a half together, we were fighting like this because we were both so right. And he told me, I don't know if it's going to work out. And he was even thinking about going back to Switzerland. This is the love of my life. I adore that man. And it was my third and fourth column, my self-esteem. He would make his comment that I felt were criticism. Lynn, you should do it this way. And I felt I wasn't good enough. And that was the nerve that was hit on a regular basis. And as was so well expressed this weekend, I want him to change. Just stop criticizing me, then my feelings are not going to get hurt. So really, I'm being irresponsible, and I want to shift the changing onto you. But I went to work. My sponsor is Marty Ruby for Austin, Texas. And you're so fortunate if you get to hug and see your sponsor on a regular basis. I haven't seen mine in 2 years. We're going to speak together in May, and we're going to be roomies. I get to spend a whole weekend with my sponsor. And so, but she's tough. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. One day my husband tells me, I don't know why you brought me here from Switzerland. You don't even want to go out with me. So I explained to him, I am a solitary person. I need to read my books, do my spiritual work. People deplete my energy. I need to be home, replenish, sit on my chair, read all the books that they were writing when Bill Wilson wrote the big book. And you know, I don't have the same social needs as some other people. I can be totally contented at home all by myself. And then I call my sponsor to tell her about how solitary I am and what a problem it is. And she said, that sounds like laziness to me. Laziness? After all I do? She said, Lynn, when you don't want to do something, you get lazy. See, I didn't want to go to the friggin' Kenny Rogers concert. There goes one for you. He lived his culture, his daughters, his grandchildren, his beautiful Swiss mountain, his friends he's had for 30, 40 years, and I don't want to go to the concert. So the truth was, you know what, honey? I know you've given all that up for me, but I'm so selfish, I don't want to go with you tonight. Instead, I made that BS story about being solitary. I am solitary, but in this case, I was just being plain selfish. And so I do well with numbers. And so once a week, I do something for my husband that I don't want to do, and he's not supposed to know, she says. Oh, I'd love to, honey. And it's not being dishonest because I want him to be happy. And so I have to continue being aware, to watch selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear constantly. And then go back to being with God again. We have this beautiful prayer, the St. Francis prayer, in the 11th step in the 12 and 12. And you know, if I'm not blocked, this is where I can go. This is where I can go. If I can discipline that mind with the 10th and 11th step, to sit in prayer in the morning and to do my reading. My husband, we do that together in the morning. It's so wonderful. We share this program, he and Al-Anon, and we practice the traditions in our home, and it's just so wonderful. And so it reminds me when I went to Hawaii to snorkel. It was gray, cloudy, almost depressing. And then I put my head down and said, oh my goodness, this is magical. The pinks, the yellows, the blues. I was so joyful. I was so happy. And then I raised my head up. It's gray, it's dark again. So this is my dishonesty, resentment, and fear, and feeling threatened, and my little feelings, and I have my head up here. And if it crops up and I go back to God, there it is again. And so how many times during the day am I going to go up and down and up and down? And so we found out that the great reality is deep down within us, right in here. It's that close. And I like to think that the St. Francis qualities are God-given qualities, divine qualities: love, peace, truth, harmony, faith, trust, joy, light, understanding, comfort, forgiveness. All of us, we have this in here right now. It's just blocked. So if I can go to God to ask Him to remove the blockage, here I am already a beautiful lit instrument of God to be used to the people about me and to all my fellow men. So we are just so beautiful. It's not like we have to go to Mars, or there is a great distance and a great process for us to just be instrument, God's agent. We have the authority to act on God's behalf. We are divinely crafted to save lives. It is an awesome assignment that we have on this earth at this time. It's just right here. I can see it in your eyes, this instrument of peace. If you are new today, I beg you to give us a chance to share that big book with you. Do not go about it by yourself. There are too many words that can trip us, stop us. Because of prejudices, because of fear, because it seemed too big of a task. But we take the hands of our sponsors. Find yourself a sponsor. We usually nibble. It's not more than a nibbling, really. We don't bite unless absolutely necessary. Otherwise, sweet, sweet, yes, honey, I understand how hurtful that must feel. Now, what is it that you were saying to him before he said that? Oh, well. And so we're going to do that with you. And it's the greatest journey, that spiritual journey. It has no end. It's all inclusive. It's broad. It's roomy. We never stop learning. I tell my sponsors, sometimes they want to put us on pedestals, And I tell them, you know, we're all in this school, and you're still in diaper, and I'm just getting up to walk against the wall. It's not like I'm in college. We're still all in the sandbox, you know? The immaturity, the irresponsibility, the childishness. This is Denise. I had it on for the alarm, and she owes me a 10th step, so we'll look at that later. And so I lost where I was. The what? It's all in the sandbox. And this is why, having been sober for a long time, 36 years to me is a long time, I have to make sure that I can still admit I have a resentment. Sometimes I want to call it just an irritation, so I can wish it away. They didn't call on me. She didn't invite me. It can be so petty. It's still a resentment, and I have to be able to share it. So I throw myself under the bus to my spouses on a regular basis. Keeps me humble, keeps me where I need to be, and it helps them share with me. See, when I'm in pain, I don't want to talk with someone who's perfect. I don't want to talk to a saint. I want to talk to someone who's done what I've done. And so it's so important to continue to reveal those things that I do. One time I was speaking at a conference, and afterwards this young lady came up to me and she said, I've been sober 4 years, and I was telling my sponsor I'm not nearly as sick as I thought I was. Thank you. And so here I am. This is the way it is. This is the way my life is. And my husband is, I'll just finish with this. In 2008, well, I went to Switzerland with one husband, and I came home with another one. That's what happened. That's what happened. It's just what happened. And so, sorry, Bob. This is Sunday morning. So in any case, I had a charity that I started in 2009. I went on a safari. There was a little Maasai school, and I thought I need to help them. So I started a 501c3. And when I went to Switzerland, I lost all my contacts, and I needed help. So I talked to the company where I worked. They had a manufacturer in Tanzania where the charity was, and I asked if they would help me. And they asked me some question, and I said, well, I answered, told them my story, and I said, this is really an interesting story. If you want, we can write an article about you in our magazine, and we send that to thousands of employees. I said, that'd be great. So there was this little picture of me, page article, and this 2-3 weeks later, I get an email from this guy, a retiree from that company, who'd received the magazine at home, and he was on his way to do volunteer work in South Africa for a month, but he really liked the work that I'm doing, and do I need any help? And so I said, yes, I do. And we met at the office, in this job, for lunch. And he's waiting for me tonight. That's my honey. And so I had already started the separation proceeding with the first husband, so it wasn't very honestly, but still that's the way it was. And then he came back with me, and now we have this just glorious life that's available to all of us in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so if you are new, the answer to all your problems is in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he will provide for all our needs if we stay close to him and perform his work well. I hope this morning it was well. Thank you so much.